Good. Okay, I'm Christine Mercer, one of the founders of Women in Backgammon, and Karen Davis, who puts these together, is sitting right next to me up on the top of your screen. And we welcome everyone to our monthly backgammon event, where we have two really strong players come in and play and talk about why they made the choices they made. And this month, I'm extremely excited to have Safi here, Safiya Tracy, because she's been playing backgammon since 2016, which is not a long time in the scheme of some of the people who play. But it wasn't until she joined the Bristol Backgammon Club in 2020. Is that right, Safi?
Yeah.
In 2020 that she discovered how much there is to the game. And I guess one of the things I wanted to say that's so exciting about that is we're seeing a lot of emerging people who are taking up the game and really immersing themselves into it. And one of the things that you said was, I learned a lot from playing regularly at Bristol, which is a strong club. And over the last year, I've also been coached by Tim Cross, which who has improved my game massively. So in late 2021, you were selected for the United Kingdom's women's team. Most of your tournament experience has been online. And before we get started, I wanted to ask you two quick questions that I thought people would be really interested in. Do you think online prepared you better for tournaments, or would it have been better if you'd played more in person?
I think it's a bit different playing in person. So I want to get more experience. But yeah, it's hard to say because I haven't analysed a lot of my in-person games, so I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. But yeah.
Interesting. But congratulations on your incredible growth over the last couple of years. And Chris Bray, who just walked away, but I'm sure he's coming right back.
I'm here.
There he is. Well, we all know you as the columnist that you are, and also, of course, multiple backgammon books, beginners and intermediate, Backgammon to Win, Backgammon for Dummies, which is a book I have on my shelf. Actually, I say that with pride. And 7 of your books, drew on material developed from your columns and articles. And then you also, which I love, you run on Sunday night, I think it goes up. Is it Sunday night it goes up, where you put up the question of what move would you make on Facebook? And I always want to be the first one to put my answer up in case I'm not accused of copying anyone. I love that you do that. And then the next day he'll tell you the answer. So I think if you're not doing it, it's a really good, I think, mental exercise. What do you have to say about that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, there are many ways of learning at backgammon, but ultimately you have to study positions, you have to test yourself. So that's just one way of doing it. I actually also do a daily blog with a daily position on my own website, which, just for an advertising thing, is www.chrisbraybackgammon.com. And there it varies from very easy to very difficult problems.
Interesting.
The one thing I've done over the last 3 years is just how different tournament play is to money play, because I spent years just playing money games and very few tournaments, and now the reverse is true. And the difference between the two forms of the game is immense.
Great.
And just to underscore again, that's on the U.S. Backgammon Federation Facebook site that's posted every Monday with Chris's answers on Tuesday. And members of the U.S. Backgammon Federation can read Chris's column with further explanation of the position and the answer on the U.S. Backgammon Federation website.
And Chris has been playing for 40 years, and your numerous wins and hugely respected in the community. And one of the things I just wanted to end with before you guys get started is, how cool is it that we've got somebody who's really been playing for 5 years, who's sitting at a table equally playing somebody who's been playing for 40 years. So Chris, I don't know if you're the underdog or I don't know which way, I don't know how that plays, but I think it's sort of an exciting thing. And it reminds us that you don't have to be great to really reach out and start playing in tournaments, online and otherwise. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris. I think you're one that's going to set it all up, right?
So just a comment on that. there are a few older players, no doubt, on this webcast this afternoon. So when I learnt backgammon, the opening moves and pretty much everything was open to question, and some of them were downright wrong. So I've had to unlearn a lot of the things that I learned in order to play properly. Safi at least has the benefit that she's only learnt in the computer era, so with a bit of luck, she doesn't have to unlearn lots of things, which means that she will get a lot better, a lot quicker than I ever did.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Okay, best of luck to you both. Good match.
Okay. So we'll play the match and then I'll run it through XG. Okay, so here we go. We're up and running, hopefully.
Come on.
Right, so I have the opening roll, and there's not going to be any argument about that. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. Now would be a good moment to mention if you can't. Any comments, Safi? No, okay.
No.
All right, so again, the first 3 moves so far have all been a pretty standard opening.
So I could make the 23-point anchor, but it's not the best for getting out with 6s, so I'm not sure about that. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know. I can't really see any other move that looks that good. So I'll do that.
So I'd have thought slotting the 5-point was too big given the 2 blots in my home board as well. So my plan is to run away. I've just failed to do that. And if I play 24 to 18, I don't have an ace. So I can do this, but I don't gain a great deal out of making the bar point rather than the 8-point. So I'm ahead in the race. I will just play this simply and I'll wait to escape the other rear checker on my next roll, hopefully. Okay, so now my game plan is still to escape the rear checker. I could make the 4-point, but I'm not going to give voluntary shots. So I'm going to do my best to escape. So I could have played 24, 22, 13 to 9, but if I'm going to escape, I'll try to escape as far as I can. So this seems logical.
So I think I'm going to move the back checkers. But yeah, I'm not really sure. There's not much I can do.
I think it's called an air shot in golf.
Yeah. So I'm going to do 23 to 18 and 23 to 21.
So to me, that's a little bit overly aggressive because you're racing when behind. You give me 1s, 4s, 6s, 2s to hit, and I've got a lot of double hitting rolls here. So one of the things I've learned through playing hours and hours of online backgammon during lockdown is you have to be aggressive. So I'm going to double this.
Your opponent doubles.
I think I've got to take. Yeah.
You take.
Yeah. So we always need to follow Moshe's rule. Moshe's rule says this, that on any doubling decision, you take 12 seconds, and particularly in matches, you always take 12 seconds at least. So I'm going to hit with the 6. The question is what to do with the 5. So I can bring another checker down. I can't safety the blot on the bar point, but I can continue my plan of escaping the rear checker, and it also duplicates 3s. So unless I've completely missed something, I think this is the right play.
So I'll come in with the 4 to make that point, and then slot the 4 point.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So now we've reached a position we sort of understand at least. This is not a great roll. So nearly anything would be better. So I can make the 5 point. So always look for candidate plays and then try and analyze them and then make a decision. I can play safe and play this, which only leaves 3s. I can do this, which leaves 3 blocks but strengthens my board. What else can I do? I can do this with the 2 and this with the 3, which actually looks better. So I've only got 1 blot. I'm on my way home. There is a duplication of 3s. So if Safi doesn't roll a 3, I should be in a good position. So let's see.
So I've got to hit because I'm so behind in the race.
Yeah, may never get another chance to hit. So now 5-3 is for me a bit of an air shot. I can't hit anything. I don't want to expose a second blot at a point when I've only got 1 rear checker. So I'll come in with a 3 to put pressure on Safi's blot on her 4 point, and I'll just bring a checker down. I'm still 15 pips ahead, so I'm feeling relatively comfortable, but from Safi's beginning to improve her position here, and if she rolls something good.
Okay, so I could hit and make the 4 point or the 3 point. I don't think I want to move the back checkers, and I'm still quite behind in the race. So I want to hit on the 3 point, and then it's just a question of which 3. I think I'll do the 4 point.
Okay, and I've rolled double 6. I wasn't sure about Safi's play, but we'll look at that one later in analysis. So let's continue.
So I could make the 3 point or the 5 point, but I think the 5 point is better because it's a stronger point to have. Then again, we're quite equal in the race, so I don't want to leave as many shots. But I'm going to do that.
Okay, so higher risk, higher reward, which has paid off because I've found it again.
So I think I'm going to double at this point. My board's a lot stronger. Yeah.
You double.
Ooh, what fun. Okay, so 3s, 5s, and 6, 4 make the 3 point. And if I don't come in, I'm in a lot of trouble. What else? 3s are duplicated, so I've still got an attack against the checkers on my side of the board. But obviously, if I lose a gammon, I lose the match. I don't like my position. In a chouette, I might make a gambling take, but in theory, you go through all the numbers and see how they play. But obviously, we've not got time to do that here. But I've noticed also that double 6 covers. So normally I'd spend a lot longer, but I think this is my instinct says this is a drop, so I'm going to drop.
Your opponent drops. New game.
Okay, so now at the start of any game in any match, you always decide on what you're trying to do. So I'm trailing 0-2. I want gammonish positions, prime versus prime. I don't want holding game positions. Equally well, I'll be quicker to double than normal. So this is a standard known opening where you don't hit, you just make the 5 point. Again, if you don't know that, you can't deduce it from first principles. So that's the sort of thing that you have to learn, which is why most of the top players know most of the opening roll sequences, the first 3 rolls, but there's a phenomenal number of combinations. So you sometimes play on principle, not on detailed knowledge.
So I think that's the 5, and then I'm just not sure about the 3, whether I should do 13 to 10 or 24 to 21. But I think 13 to 10 is better, even though it leaves more shots. So I'll go with that.
Yeah. I was hoping you'd creep up and that would give me a nice attack, but you haven't done that. 4-3 is more awkward, so the 4 is going to come down. The question is the 3. I could hit loose with 8 to 1, but I don't see that as being viable. I've got the better board, so I can do this, but then I'm possibly behind in the prime building contest. So this is definitely the 4. Do I play the 3 in order to build a prime, or do I come up and challenge the blocks while I've got the better board? The race is fairly equal. And I, like many backgammon positions, I'm not absolutely sure. So I'm gonna challenge. So now I'm happy that the plot is there because it stops Safi running away with the 6-5.
So I'm going to make the 5 point rather than escape the back checker, just because I'd be leaving too many shots otherwise. I want to make that point.
6-5, well, I can escape my rear checker, but I'm going to leave that one out of harm's way. Bring the checker that's under threat round with the hope of making my bar point or 4 point, or at worst, my 3 point next time. One, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so normally it's a good idea to check, particularly online, that you haven't missed anything. I can't see anything better than this after 2 looks, so hopefully this is correct.
So I'm thinking I could play 8 to 4 because I'm under attack. If I come out with the 4, I'm probably going to get hit. Or I could play 13 to 9. But I think 8 to 4 is better.
So any passive move would have drawn the cube there because I'm trailing 0-2 and there are gammon threats in the air. Now being on the bar, it's a different question, and I don't think I'm strong enough to double from the bar, particularly if I roll 3-5. So 3 is obviously forced. There's very little point in leaving a direct 6, which would be of great use to Safi, so I will just do this. It's a 7-pip race, so it's pretty close.
So I think I definitely want to do the 2 here, and then just come out with the 6. Yeah, I don't think there's... Yeah, I think that's the move.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything more logical. So I'm going to hit with the 1, obviously. I could slot the bar, but that takes the last spare checker off the midpoint and allows lots of returns. I want checkers in the outer board. So I can do this. I can do this. That leaves good sixes in return. So that doesn't look like the right idea. So I'm going to be, the race is going to be close after this. So it's a choice between that and that. So I'm going to go with this and limit my blocks to 2, as Safi has a reasonable board. It doesn't duplicate anything.
So I could play 13 to 8 or 6 to 1, but I think because it's quite close in the race, there's not much point in leaving the shot on the 1 point. Yeah, so I think just 13 to 8.
Okay, so it's a 5-pip race with very equal positions, so the cube is staying where it was. 4-1, so now I've got a number of choices. I can make the 9 point and do this. I can run away with the idea of making the bar. Normally when your opponent has 1 back checker, the mantra is you prime an anchor, you attack a single checker. So the question is, if I play this move, do any of Safi's rolls spring another checker loose? Doesn't look as if there are any particularly bad rolls for it, and I've now got 4 blocks. So, again, I'm going to put the pressure back on her to perform. I think that 6 to 1 is an overplay, but the analysis could yet prove me wrong. Okay, so maybe I should have hit.
So 13 to 7, and then I'm thinking I could do 7 to 1. Don't think I'd want to do this with 3 direct shots. So yeah, I think 13 to 1 twice.
Okay, so we'll look at that later, the choices between Safi's play and making the pure prime and hopping out with the last 6. So if I come in, I'm all right. If I don't come in, I could be in a lot of trouble. So I've come in, and now it's even more fun. So lots of plays here. I can make the 9 point, but then Safi's just going to attack with 3s and 5s and 10s. I can do this, and given that I'm losing and that Safi has another blot on my midpoint, this is the more aggressive play. I think it's a choice between those 2 plays. This is obviously another play, but that just leaves another block in no particular game. So it's a hitting battle where I'm at a disadvantage, particularly because Safi's 4s and 6s are good. I'm 20 pips behind in the race, so I need to make something happen. I'm going to hit. I have the advantage that if I'm hit back, which has just happened, I get the chance to make an anchor. And now it's going to get even more fun. I'm obviously going to hit.
So I could do 13 to 9. Or 6 to 2.
Excuse me.
If I want to leave a direct shot, I'm quite ahead in the race. So I'm thinking probably just 13 to 9.
Okay, so the move I feared there was the double hit. 2 on the bar, better by far. Now I've got good sixes and good fives, but I need to come in. If I don't come in, Safi's probably good enough to play on for an undouble gammon. So let's see what happens. 3. So the good 6 came off. Now it's going to get even more exciting. So Safi could have hit there, given that I got 5 blots and she's got the better board. That was certainly an option. So that may well be a missed opportunity. Let's have a look. And now I can make 2 points. So I doubt whether there's anything better than this. Let's do that. Now some of Safi's 6s are ungainly.
So I could do that. Or 6-5 here, but yeah, I think it's better to come out now. So I'll do that.
So sometimes I use Kent Goulding's old adage, imagine you roll a good roll but not your best, and your opponent rolls a bad roll but not her worst. Would I have missed my market? So if I hit and Safi comes in, I probably, particularly if I hit with a 2 and I've still got 2 checkers a long way back, I probably won't have lost my market. There are only 2 blots. I've got a 3-point board. Safi's got a 4-point board. So the score might lend me to double because I hit with 6s, 3s, and 2s. So I'm beginning to think more that this might be a double, particularly as her redouble will, what we call a crippled cube. She'll very rarely redouble. And were I to roll a number, so if I hit and Safi doesn't hit back, could be looking quite good. So I'm not sure, so I'll apply Woolsey's law. If I don't know what the answer is, double anyway.
Your opponent doubles.
So I think I've got to take in this position, just still quite ahead in the race. And my board's quite strong still. Then again, with the match score, I would be more likely to pass. But yeah, I think it's still a take.
Yeah, my double might have been slightly premature, and 5-1 really doesn't help very much, I have to say. So now I'm going to be forced to hit. So my double is beginning to look somewhat. So this is the other opportunity, so that I don't panic. If I hit, I'm facing a 4-point board with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blots. If I just do this, Safi's blot is unlikely to escape, and I can be more aggressive next time now that I've tidied things up a bit. 5-1 hitting just looks just a little bit too loose for me. I'm prepared to be called out by XG in the analysis, though.
So I'll do the 3 and the 1.
Right. So
yeah.
I still haven't lost my market. So my double was probably a little bit premature. As per Roberti's latest book, your opponent has to pay a premium to escape her last checker. So the premium is about to be paid. The question is how to play the 5. So to take away 2-6 as an option and to give myself more covers, I'll try this. Double 6, not great. So 6 is good. Now the 5. So I can come down to the 8-point, which leaves a 2-6. So I can come here, which acts on both the 2-point and the 1-point. So without doing too much deep analysis, we'll go with this.
So I could do 6-2, but I think 8-4 is better.
Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty much forced and definitely not my best roll. Safi escapes, I'm in trouble. She's escaped. Okay.
So I could do the 4 here.
No hitting numbers, so it looks 6-5. Sorry.
6-5. What are you doing? Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're not hungry, are you?
I think, yeah, I don't know whether it's better to risk leaving a shot now, but I think I'll do that, yeah.
I think this is the right play. I will make my 2 point.
I'm just thinking about redoubling. Wouldn't really want to at this match score, but I think with the race difference, it would be enough to redouble, but I don't know.
Double.
Okay, so this is an 11-pip race where I've got both hitting and racing chances. I'm squeezed off with a 6, so it's uncomfortable, but Safi still has to bear in her checkers. If I drop, I will be 4-0 behind Crawford, which gives me a 15% chance of winning the match. I've got way more than 15% because I shall take the cube and redouble to 8. So it's a very easy take.
Your opponent takes.
And Safi's rolled one of her poorer numbers. Three of them are forced.
These 3. And then I'll move the 9 as the 4th one.
Your opponent doubles.
Yeah, I think I've still got to take, even though I've left a shot.
I would agree. So I've just missed. So that's not a great start. Now the question is, what happens next?
So I want to play the 5 here to not leave any more shots, and the 3 play there or there. I think it might be this one because there's a few roles that I could play in this position that I couldn't in the other.
It's not easy.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So the question to be asked is, if I go, how will the 5s play? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with this move.
So again, if you're playing a match, that would be the most important decision in the match. So I would actually take, obviously we're not going to do that in this session, but 4 or 5 minutes looking at all the possible combination of rolls on the next roll. You can't do it exactly, but you can get a guide. Yeah, 6-4 is obviously forced. Now, Safi's worst number is 6-5. Sorry to point that out.
So I think I'm just going to do 8-4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else.
So I can't move the rear checker. I'm not crunching my board. The race is still on because Safi's got a lot of dead checkers. And now the next roll becomes very important.
So I have to move by...
Which only leaves 6-2 as a return hit. But 6-5 gives some racing opportunities. And that, from now till the end of the game, it's all going to be very easy because the moves are going to be pretty much forced. Yeah, so Safi's filled a hole. I've created one. So the race is now only 5 pips. Safi's got 6 pips of wastage, which she's just dealt with. Whoops, hang on, sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, no, sorry. Misclicking, beg your pardon. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 checkers plays 6, but I've got 3 gaps. So I really don't. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Now what? So it looks like 6-4 would be wrong. I need to spread the checkers out. This makes double 3. Good. I can't believe that. Right. So Safi's managed to roll a 3, which makes life interesting. That's going to come down to the last roll. It's all on this, and now you've only got the dice to blame if it all goes wrong. Oh. Force move.
You played on advanced level.
Yeah, so it looks like our PRs were pretty poor, so we will save the match. So there were some key decisions in there. I was unsure about some of them, my dog, Safi as well. So we will now stop the share on that and pull it into XG.
Yeah, put it in.
So if you just hold on, I will pull the match into XG. And I'll start the analysis running, and I will now share the screen again with you. Share screen. So hopefully you can all see this now. We've got XG running and analysing the match. Although always, so I have a rule, I never play a new match until I've analysed the preceding one, because otherwise you lose information. So you then look at the overall PRs, and then you look at the errors, then you look at the blunders. And then what I do is I file the errors and the blunders under categories on my machine, so I can then review those in groups at a later date and hopefully not make the same mistakes again. So, can everyone see the screen? I hope you can.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first error. Okay, so at least one of the things when you're analysing is that if you missed a move completely, that's really quite annoying. So here I at least discuss the possibility of advancing to the 22 point and coming down with the 4. I came up with the 4 and down with the 2, which perhaps gave Safi too many, because it brought the rear checker in range of the checkers on the midpoint more easily. So that's an error. So at the end of the day, you can't worry about all the errors. You can only learn from them. What you need to learn from is the blunders. So Safi's next move was too ambitious. Do you want to comment, Safi?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I found that one difficult.
Yeah, I mean, what I said at the time was this is an air ball, so you have to accept the fact that it hasn't worked. I've got the better board, you've got an anchor, so you just build a board and wait for the next exciting moment, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, so I then double. So, and again, if you look at the numbers, which are in the bottom left-hand corner, this is a very skinny double. So you can either double or not double, and you're probably making the right decision. Again, when I analyze matches at home, I will roll the position out. So at the moment, we're on a one-ply analysis. If I rolled it out, I would gain more knowledge, right? So this I will do later on after the broadcast is over. So doubling was aggressive, but it's okay, it's fine. And then everything's all right. My 3-5. Now, Safi's 5-3 is an overplay. And again, I've got the better board, and her move of hitting and leaving 4 blocks is just too risky. So, yeah, you take what the dice give you, and in this case, that's my bar point. And then you play 13 to 8, and I hope I don't roll a 1, basically. Again, you learn from your mistakes. So hopefully the next time an opportunity like this arrives, you don't overplay it. So, I then got hit 6-4, and Safi redoubled, and it's a big pass, mainly because of the gammon threat. So she wins 72% of games, but a quarter of the time she wins a gammon, and that loses the match. So whilst you could probably squeeze a take out here in a money game, or 0-0 to 11 or something like that, it's certainly not a take here. So far we were doing all right. Obviously we went wrong in the next game. So, okay. This is the next, so the next green thing, the next error is my 6 in this position. I hit with a 1, and I should have come out apparently with the rear checker to the bar. I guess that leaves 3s duplicated. By coming out with a 6, I gave Safi good 4s. By coming out from the 24 point, I give her good 6s. So again, but the point is, after 22-16 with a 6, the rear checkers are separated and not communicating. Whereas if I play 24-18 and I get hit, I get a bunch of return shots. So the thing about XG is you learn after the event, and if you're a good interpreter, you can learn a lot, okay? So that was fine. 5-1 by Safi was good. 16-11 was correct. Hitting was just way overplaying it, so that was fine. And then Safi rolled an excellent double 6, and I decided that hitting was right, but it's wrong. We discussed this at the time. I wasn't sure, so when in doubt, hit. But here, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks against a better board. So I was keen on picking up Safi's extra block and should have been looking at my own number of blocks against the strength of her board. So I should have played calmly, but I overreacted and I played poorly. So then what happens? I get hit. That's fine. I come in and hit back. Also fine. Now the 1-4. So again, I commented at the time, 2 on the bar, better by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, Safi's got the better board. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. So rather than worry about what could happen, aggression is the name of the game in backgammon a lot of the time. Yeah. So any comment, Saf?
Yeah, I think I was just too focused on like what could happen rather than trying to win a gammon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's entirely correct. So then I came in and hit, and then you came in and didn't hit. Yeah. So it's
same mistake there, really.
Yeah, it's the same comment as last time. I've got 5 dots. You've got a 4-point board. I've got a 3-point board. You need the tempo of the hit, because otherwise I can improve my position. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I say to a lot of students that, you know, how you conduct your life at home and in general, I really don't mind. But in backgammon, you do need to learn to be slightly more aggressive than maybe you would be naturally. And I use that as a guidance point a lot. So we then get to here. So I then made 2 points, which was great. 22-11. And as I said at the time, this is too aggressive as a double. So despite the score, it's a double blunder, because basically I've got too much work to do. And as we saw, I rolled a 5-1 and couldn't afford to hit. So some of my 6s were not as good as they could have been. So what I should have done was wait a roll. And as we'll see, the position improves. So after this, level 6. So now I rolled 5-3, and I think I might have missed a move completely. So I did miss a move completely, and I got punished for it. So again, I've overreached. So this is a classic online backgammon error. You just don't see a move. I was so focused on hitting with any 2 or 3, I forgot to look at what else was possible. And this is where you learn stuff. So 5-3 makes the 8-point, which gives me a 5-point broken prime. Makes Safi's 5s horrible, or not all of them, but quite a few of them. So I overreached here and completely missed a candidate move. So if you're learning backgammon, if you miss a candidate, you can't play a move you don't see. So that's precisely what I did. So it's a great example. I'm sorry I was on the wrong end of it. And if I had this position as a problem, I would have no issue with making the right play, but my focus was on the wrong thing. So quite interesting and a good lesson. Safi stayed out. I made the point. She came in. I rolled double 5, which is horrible. And then we come to the redouble. Okay. So it's your redouble. You can talk.
Yeah, so I guess I just overestimated my winning chances, and at that match score, you need to be a lot more cautious.
Yeah. So you either know your match equity tables or you don't. There are formulas for calculating them. You may want to play backgammon at a level where you never even know what a match equity table is. And that's absolutely fine, because people can play at all sorts of levels and enjoy the game. So, but if you want to play match play backgammon, you have to have some understanding of the equities. So here, if I had dropped, I would have been 4-0 down and I know that I would only have a 15% chance of winning the match. I know that I'm going to win way more than 15% from here. So it's a very easy take, and sadly, it's a very easy no double. But you know, you only learn through mistakes. Double 5 was a horror roll, so I then have a forced redouble.
Chris, this is Karen. If you can back up to the redouble.
Yeah.
If this were a money game or 0-0,
yeah,
what would the cube decision have been? How much does the match score figure in?
The match score figures hugely. So one of the things I've learned through all this online play during lockdown is there are 2 things that people forget when they're playing match play backgammon. One is the score, And your score, your checker movement and doubling decisions are hugely influenced by the score. The second thing is people forget that they can play on for an undouble gammon, which you can't do with a centered cube in a money game. So the score is the most important thing. It's always the most important thing. Here, this would be a double and a take, a redouble and a take for money. So if you look at the winning chances, white has 22% winning chances. There are very few gammons for either side. But the fact that obviously in a money game, you wouldn't redouble as white immediately. You would have the value of owning the cube, which you don't get when you do an automatic redouble. So this would be a really good redouble for money and a close take. Yeah.
And the other question I had, Chris, obviously Safi's up against a formidable opponent in you.
Yeah.
Is it ever right to put it on the line like this, knowing that she's not a favorite against you?
Yep, absolutely. So depending on what you think the skill disparity is, remember that everybody thinks they're better than they are, then quite often it could well be right to put the match on the line. So let me give you I can give you a very quick example. Whoops, sorry, a bit of background noise. Let me give you an example from the World Championship from about 16 years ago. I was playing, I'm just trying to remember who I was playing, and it's gone out of my head, but he was in the top 5 in the world at the time. The score was 4-all, and we got to a position where my opponent had 1 checker on the 6 point, and I had 2 checkers on my ace point, which is, we all know, is a redouble, and you can either drop or take, and you will have made the right decision. But I was being offered a cube to 8 in a match at 4-all to 15. So if my opponent was much weaker than I was, I would drop, but he was much better than I was, so I took. Yeah? Because I want as many points as possible on the roll of the dice rather than my skill, because at that point in time, I was not as strong a player as I am today. I'm pleased to say that he rolled 3-2 and I won the match, but that's a good example of how to think about the cube. And certainly as an underdog, if you're playing someone who's good and you get anywhere near a gammon, you should double positions that potentially are not technically doubles, but which will scare your opponent somewhat. Okay, so double 5, I missed the shot, which was a winning shot, probably, and missed. Now, this is the last probably key decision in the match, which is how does Safi play her 5-3? So the 5 is forced, and it's then a question of the 3. So do you hold the spare checker on the 8 point, or do you bear it in? Long experience tells me that the vast majority of time you bear the spare checker in, because then you have numbers that clear the 8 point next time. If you hold the 3rd checker on the 8 point, you have what's called extended jeopardy. So you might solve one of the a checker next time, but you've still got to move the other 2 checkers on the 8 point. So the key here is take the risk now to remove the extended jeopardy. I've often seen people do what Safi did, and it's difficult to analyze over the board. And if you haven't seen it before, your chance of getting it right are pretty low. So I've seen, because I'm very old and much older than Safi, I've seen this type of position so many times before. So I knew instinctively that 6-1, 8-5 was the right move. But
I'll be right back.
we didn't have time, you know, if I had 14 minutes left on my clock in a match, and this was the key moment, I'd take 10 or 12 of them just to make sure I got as close to the truth as possible. So in general terms, you can analyze, and then you can analyze very specifically. So this is a position where you could do a bit of very specific analysis. Yeah. So it's all fun. I rolled double 4. So after Safi's 3-2 here, she was 84% to win the game. I rolled double 4, and now she's down to 65%. On we go, and I made a mistake here. What's this? So And again, this proves that you just need, oh God, this is awful. Yeah. So 1, 6, 5, 4. Yeah. So what I should have played, and this is an attention to detail thing, I naturally assumed that 6 off 5 to 1 was correct, but that leaves a gap on the 2 point and means that 2-1 does not bear a checker off next time. Whereas if you play 6 to 2 with the 4 and then bear off a checker with the 5, 2-1 does not miss next time. So it's a tiny difference. In terms of winning chances, it's 1.2%, but 1.2% add up over time. And it's a great lesson in you must, even when you think the match is done and won or you've got no chance, you just take time, because I had time on my clock and I didn't even look at the right play. So we've had 2 instances in this match where I've failed to look. I missed a core candidate play, and then I've been technically inaccurate through laziness. So, and then of course Safi was unlucky in this position. Again, if you studied backgammon, and I would advise everybody to read books, you would know that Safi had 23 winning rolls and 13 losing rolls, and unfortunately for her, she rolled one of the 13, and obviously then I bore off and I won. So in summary, what I would then do, from my perspective, is I'd look at the summary. I'd be annoyed with the PR, but I understand the PR. I made 3 blunders. So a premature double and 2 checker plays. Safi's made 1 doubling blunder and 4 checker plays. So she, I hope, will file those away, roll them out, look at them and learn from them. And that's what all anybody can do. Backgammon is a phenomenally complex game. You can play it at all sorts of levels. You can play it for fun and never understand the complexity, and you can have great time. But if you want to get good at backgammon, you have to study. And sadly, that means quite a few hours. My wife will tell you, I spent far too many hours studying backgammon, but we can continue to disagree. We've been married for years. Anyway, there you go. That's my input. Safi, do you want to say anything at the end?
I don't think I have anything to add, no.
Yeah. So, Karen, do you want to do Q&A?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Anybody got questions?
Yes, this is everybody's chance to ask any questions you have. You can either speak up or enter it into the chat room. And while we're waiting for that, I just wanted to announce that our next Backgammon Expression Learning Series will be with Kit Woolsey, who's with us here today. Kit is a grandmaster and superb author, and also the originator of the Woolsey's Law, which is if you walk around the table and think of yourself as the opponent, would you take? So Kit and Candace Mayron, who runs the Los Angeles Open Tournament and the California State Tournament, will be our guests on Tuesday, October 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But Kit, I don't know if you had any comments on the match.
Well, yeah, I have comments on a lot of moves, but it'd be pretty difficult to go back on them, without actually replaying the match.
I'd like to say something. Thank you, Chris and Safiya, for an interesting match, and also thank you, Chris. You made human error. And
you always have to throw in an error that makes you look human. Trouble is, I do it all the time.
But it shows those of us that are not on your level that we are all human, and it's still a learning process, and we can learn from our mistakes to be better. Thank you.
Great comment. There was a comment in there are two things on that. I loved that you said that twice you didn't take enough time to look at the options before you moved. I just think that's a great lesson for intermediate and beginner and everybody, because I know I make that mistake often. But also, someone made a comment, I think not knowing the right move can make you unpredictable and harder to beat. Do either one of you want to comment on that comment? Because I think it's an interesting comment that we sometimes fall into, but really, is that true statistically or not?
Statistically, no, because when I learnt backgammon, the best move in any position was given to you by expert players who you were playing with. But the problem was that they were wrong quite often. The advantage of having a computer is that you can actually find out what the best move is. I think being unpredictable is all right if you're aggressively unpredictable, because sometimes that pays off. But we do, unfortunately, you can tell the correct move 99% of the time nowadays by asking the computer the question. Just to go back on that other comment. So firstly, I would reiterate Moshe's rule that, and I would also remind you of Paul McGreal's quote, that the errors that you make with the doubling cube will never compensate for how good you are at moving the checkers. So that statement was written in 1976 and has stood the test of time. If you look at the PR analysis of any of the top 100 players in the world, you have two PRs, one for your cube action and one for your checker play. Without exception, everybody's cube PR is higher than their checker play PR because it's the most difficult part of the game. So obey Moshe's rule, take 12 seconds, even if it seems obvious, because 12 seconds is not a long time, but it is a long time, and it stops you making mistakes. And the only other comment I would make on doubling is I use four fundamental things, 5 fundamental things. I know all the race formulae, so I can apply those, so I'll hardly ever make an error in a race. Secondly, I use Pratt, position, race, threat. There are 3 elements in any backgammon position. The actual static element of the position, the race, which is the pip count, and then the threat, how volatile is it? So I'm not going any deeper than that, but you need to understand those 3 elements. Secondly, I use Woolsey's law, and I've used it all my life, and it's won me a lot of money, so thank you, Kit. And finally, I use O'Hagan's law, which is another very useful law to know, which basically says in an even position, if you've got a single shot, if you hit it, it's great. If you miss, the game goes on, and the hit potentially generates gammons, then it's nearly always correct to double. And again, that wins you a lot of games and a lot of gammons. So those elements are my key elements. My lockdown project was to write a book for beginners and intermediates on doubling. And you'll be glad to know I finally mapped out the chapter headings last week. So sometime in the next 3 to 4 months, I will get that published. So that will not deal with equities or anything else. It will be a common sense approach to doubling that can be understood by anybody.
Which is great. We have another question in, and then we'll wrap up soon. But if counting picks the long way is beyond you, what is the best alternate for a club player to learn?
Sadly, there's no real compensation for doing the thing, but you can learn. There are shortcuts to doing pip counting. So, for example, if you have a closed home board, that is 42 pips. And for those of you that are science fiction fans, 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, from Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So that's how I remember it. Secondly, if you've got lots of points, contiguous points, meaning next to each other with the same number of checkers on, then you only have to add up the middle one and multiply it by the number of contiguous points. So if you've got 2 checkers on the 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 points, you add up the 2 checkers on the middle one, which is the 6 point, 2 6s are 12, multiply by the number of points, which is 5, and you get 60. So that's one way of doing it. And if you have trouble counting at all, you can use comparative methods. So you can look at the two positions, and if there are equal checkers on both sides of the board, you can discount them. Unfortunately, that doesn't give you a base, which you need to do this stuff accurately. There is a paper on my website called Backgammon Races, which will give you the basic information that you need to double in backgammon, which goes from very simple to very complex. But I've always believed that most people can count. I know people who can count to backgammon that can't do mental arithmetic. So partly it's a question of practice.
Right. Well, as is true with anything.
If you're one of the fastest pip counters around, any tips you'd have for a beginner for how they could speed up their process?
I think that's difficult. As I said, there are little tricks that you can learn. So, and obviously you are quite often dealing with the midpoint and the 6 point and the 8 point. So knowing your 8 and 13 times table is quite useful, because you nearly always have checkers on the midpoint when you're doing a race. And thank you for the compliment on I've always been very quick at mental arithmetic, but when I was commentating in Cyprus 3 years ago with Jürgen Granstedt, who's won the World Championship 3 times, we got to a position with a long race, and I said to Jürgen, okay, I'll do black, you do white. And he said, don't bother, Chris, it's 1 4 1 1 3 3. And he had done that in under 4 seconds, right? Which is one of the reasons he's been world champion 3 times. So you can be good, but there's always someone better. Yeah, and you can be bad, but there's always someone worse.
Okay, thank you for that. Also, I think one of my coaches, ZZ, and he has something on his website. He taught me how to count them faster, which I'm not able to articulate to you because I'm not that good at articulating complex things, but it really helped me do it faster. And maybe it's a lazy man's approach. I don't know, but you might want to look on his website. So thank you everyone for coming today. Karen, do you have anything else to wrap up?
No, just to repeat, we'll come back on October 25th with the next Backgammon learning session with Kit Woolsey and Candace Mayer on 7 p.m. Eastern time. But thanks to everyone for being here. It's really a great turnout. And a special thanks to Chris Bray and Safiya Tracy for being willing to be with us today and to share your insights.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for putting up with the English accent. I've corresponded.
We look forward to playing you, Antoinette and I and others, on the Canute Cup competition between the UK women's team and the US women's team. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck to both teams.